You're listening to 3rd Wave Trade Talks, a podcast that explores the dynamic world of global trade and compliance. I'm Grant Sernick, Head of Sales and Marketing at 3rd Wave, where we empower businesses to master the complexities of international trade. Join me as I sit down with industry experts, innovators, and thought leaders to explore the trends, challenges, and insights that shape the future of global trade. And we're live. Adam Robinson from TRA. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Grant. I really appreciate your kind and graciousness to have an old marketing guy on the supply chain podcast.
Yeah, right. Old guy. And you're wearing your hat. Tell us where you are calling in from.
Calling in from Frisco, Texas. That's north of Dallas, Fort Worth. I lived in San Antonio, so big fan of the Spurs, and the hat's kind of become my calling card, so I keep wearing it. You know, marketing is all about how many impressions you put upon people, so I've come to be known as the black hoodie and hat guy.
But your hat changes. Always some kind of Texas kind of hat, though.
That's right. It's always the Spurs, but it's maybe a little bit different color here or there. Got to keep people a little bit on their toes, you know?
Right. Well, okay, so I'm really thrilled that you are here and that we're talking. Maybe, do you want to give a little bit of a background on who you are and what the Robinson Agency is?
Sure. So my name's Adam. I've been working in sales and marketing since the day I got out of college, probably even before then when I worked at Smoothie King managing Smoothie Kings in Austin, Texas, where I went to school at the University of Texas. So, from there, I was really interested in the way business was changing. I remember my first job out of college, I had a Motorola Q, which was a smartphone back in 2004. It was a flip phone that you could check your email on, and really was interested in the convergence of old school and new school. As an elder millennial myself, I grew up in an analog world, but I saw the transition to a digital world. And I saw that you could make sales and marketing a lot more efficient. Simple things like in 2003, doing form fills online, where, it was really not as commonplace to even bank online and have everything done online. And as I went through my career, worked at a social media startup, started getting really interested into B2B marketing. And after that startup, I got recruited by a 3PL out of Minnesota called Sernick, and really fell in love with the industry, as a lot of people do when they get into it. And we were simply lucky to tell the Sernick story and to educate our audience around all things LTL, less than truckload shipping. And by using some of the things I'd learned along the way with SEO, digital marketing, we were able to really penetrate our audience and get a lot of inbound leads that were interested in our LTL services just by simply blogging, simply putting content on the internet and people searching for it and finding it. Now, of course, it's more multifaceted than just publishing one blog today, but it is on that foundation that I started some of the first podcasts. We started some of the first webinars, some co-marketing between companies. And now, fast forward, after my stint at Turvo and a little bit at FreightWaves, I kind of had clients on the side, and eventually the side gig kind of outpaced the day job. And I said I got to take my shot and started the agency in 2021 and came in with about 12 customers. And now we're very fortunate to be serving around 50, almost 60 clients in the supply chain space, from the spectrum of all the way out in the ports of China to the final mile delivery at your door here from great companies like OneRail, who power Lowe's same-day delivery. So I've been steeped in it at a very intimate level, from port to porch, as they call it sometimes. And it's been really fun falling in love with the industry that really makes the world economy move.
Well, I think it's, I found it interesting when we started working with TRA here at 3rd Wave. One of the challenges that we find, having worked with some other outfits previously, was that there really is sort of like a knowledge, a very, very high knowledge bar that is required to help companies in this space. That might be a function of such a competitive space, and you're trying to really duke it out on the margins, whether you're in the technology world like we are at 3rd Wave, or you're a service provider on the freight side. I feel as though it's important for people that are helping you on the marketing side to really understand and bring some knowledge and sort of like a baseline knowledge to the conversation, without having us needing to educate whoever the marketing agency is to help us, for a couple of reasons. One is it takes a long time to really educate somebody. But on the other side, the idea that we need to, if we have to educate you, we're bringing our biases and things that we have right or wrong into that conversation as part of the education, which doesn't allow that agency then to say, but wait a second, I think I see the world differently, or we need to go in a different direction, or we need to think about things differently. And so I think it makes you guys are not the only ones that are marketing agencies that deal in this space, but you're certainly one of the few. And
yeah, one of the few.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I would say, the reason that we focus in on the supply chain is, one, I fell in love with it and then just started getting side clients in this space. And really, I've always said since the last 20 years working in content and SEO, relevance is the crux of the internet. And in this industry, if you aren't able to understand the company you're marketing or you're selling for, and not only the company you're selling for, but more importantly, the audience you're selling to, what are their pain points? How are they intimately struggling? Grant, you are very prolific on LinkedIn, and you get into the nitty gritty of some of the complications with trade compliance. And we wish it was very straightforward, but you've got to be able to deconstruct not only the supply chain and understand at which points you have the opportunity to message to, but more importantly, you've got to really understand how you're helping your audience. I know most businesses didn't start to not help people. They started to solve a problem that they identified and do it a better way. And whether you call that product marketing or just good B2B messaging, it's very important you start creating some sort of type of messaging congruency across all of your channels so that your audience doesn't laugh you out of the building and go, you don't know what you're talking about. Because you only got a couple of seconds on the internet to start a reputation. And in the age of social media and quick judgments, your audience is out there looking and searching for solutions. And you got to ask yourself, do I have the chance to show up in that conversation, or do I choose to make it harder and not show up in that conversation? So it's really about, how do I make an impression upon my audience where they have a takeaway that they go, these guys really do know what they're talking about. They really care about my problems. They empathetically want to help me and solve my challenges. And if I'm vetting a company, if they've done a lot of care and concern, particularly on their website and other things as I'm researching out solutions, I have a feeling that their product or their solutions are well thought out as well. And so that kind of stuff can create an impression in your target audience where they take away that I need to book an appointment, I need to book a demo and do something.
So in the services that you guys offer, or for your custom, maybe it's your customer set, you deal both with, to a high degree, software companies, technology, we call it software and technology providers, and then you also help the actual service providers themselves. My feeling is that those are somewhat two kind of different market segments, insofar as the technology providers are more unique in their service offering, and the challenge sort of circles around more how do you differentiate and emphasizing the differentiation, or the uniqueness maybe of it. Whereas in the forwarder market, or the service provider market, the companies largely offer an undifferentiated service. And I'm wondering if maybe you can talk a little bit around the difference that you've found in those two worlds, and if my assertion is correct, or you see things a little bit differently.
Well, I think some people may call those services commoditized, right? You're going to a freight audit and payment provider, you could say that industry is quite commoditized. You're going to a TMS, you could say that service, even as a technology, is commoditized. And so whether you're a technology or just simply a solutions provider, you've got to peel back the onion and ask yourself, what are we really trying to do here? And in a technological marketing approach, you're going to lean in on the product and you're going to go towards pragmatism. And the reality is, even a forwarder who may be offering the same services as another forwarder have done some things that they really have invested in that make them different. Is it your service? Is it your speed to contact your customers? Do they get a unique account manager? Are you available 24/7? Have you invested in the right tech stack to perform at a high level for your customers? And so you have to dig in and say, what is my audience looking for? Well, they're looking for a reliable partner who can do these commoditized services. That's what the audience needs. And you just need to market to those solutions pragmatically. Never put lipstick on a pig. I think authenticity and transparency are paramount. And just remember that people love to buy. They just hate to be sold. So we're not here to trick people. We're here to just say, hey, we get that you have a problem in relation to this specific mode or this specific process. And we've put an entire team of specialists around that have experience for the last 10 to 20 years. And it's not going to feel like a commoditized service. It's going to feel white glove, and it's going to feel like you have the best technology achieving the total cost of ownership that you're seeking to get as a shipper or BCO.
So we've been working together for a couple of years now, and we were a little bit slow getting started. And part of that had to do with our inability at 3rd Wave to really articulate what it was that we are and what we were doing. Wondering if maybe, is that an unusual experience with customers? And if it is, that how did you find that and the challenges that presented itself? Because we really had a hard time articulating. We were at a crossroads to a large extent.
Well, I think it's challenging even in technology to decommoditize yourself. The technology landscape in logistics and supply chain has gotten quite mature. There are really categories that have been built out that we used to have 3, TMS, WMS, and ERP. And people are starting to realize there's a lot more single point technology, and there's platforms that can really focus in on that discipline. Maybe it's trade compliance, such as in the 3rd Wave platform where you offer those solutions. But it should be somewhat uncomfortable when you're trying to get your messaging really complete and thorough. It should be collaborative, and that's sort of healthy. We want to poke and prod our clients and say, hey, you need to think a little bit deeper. Because the reality is, in a world that is driven by AI and really quick attention spans, you've got to be able to create a brand. And a brand is much more than a logo. A brand is how people feel about your company, how they feel about the people who work there, and how they feel about how thoughtful you are in bringing them to the promised land. They don't want to be bullshitted. That's the last thing people want. They want to see who are you and what's the makeup of your company. And they're going to make decisions by seeing what kind of people you are. And if it's just marketing speak and it doesn't really resonate and it isn't realistic and pragmatic to the sales conversations you're having, then when they have that experience with you as they maybe generated a lead and you're having a discovery call, they're going to say, oh, wow, this has put a bad taste in my mouth because everything you just said here in your marketing is much different than what you think you are. So that's why I think we took a little bit of time, but we had to make sure you guys bought in and that we bought in as a service provider to what the message is. And everything else becomes easier after that because we're just congruent to the core messaging that we put out. In fact, when I have new clients, and I don't know if you know this, Grant, we look at your intake form as the example that we want to see when our clients put that out. Because you gave us a lot, and it was a lot to unpack, but I would say that everybody at 3rd Wave, when you look at the website, when you look at the social media, when you look at your content, they're getting a consistent experience. And I know when they speak to you, and they hear anything from you on the sales side, that's the experience they're getting. And that kind of marketing and sales alignment and company alignment, it's just that little je ne sais quoi that you can't always measure, but it helps you just progress to new levels that maybe you weren't at before. And so, yeah, it can be difficult, but it's worth it.
So, I mean, you said something that I agree with, although I'm curious of it. So you said people don't want bullshit and or something to that effect. And they don't want to be sold to. And I can't help but think that in our industry, in the supply chain world, more than almost any other industry, there is so much marketing bullshit out there that is so painful to read and consume. I'm wondering how you square the circle around if people don't want it, why is there so much of it?
Well, because there are a lot of marketing books and conferences and strategies and tactics that you're supposed to do, right? And those are tactics. What's your strategy? You know, why are we even in this channel? Should 3rdwave be on Twitter? Should 3rdwave go to Instagram? I'd largely say probably not. Those things might feel like good marketing activities. They may feel fun, but are they producing anything? And you've got to always look at what's my time value to my return on that time investment. And when you think about, strategy, I'm really thinking about what am I trying to accomplish? And I'm working my way back. Kind of lost the thread. Can you pick me up there, Grant?
Well, we're talking about why is there so much bullshit that's in this supply chain space?
I think it's, from my seat, it's probably the biggest thing is a lack of intimate knowledge of what you're marketing, a lack of intimate knowledge of what the company's trying to achieve, and probably a misalignment between what you really are and what you aspire to be. And I would say those folks out there who are putting lipstick on a pig or just out marketing what they really are should maybe start getting a little more authentic and peeling back the curtain and saying, hey, we hear you. We never want to put lipstick on a pig with you ever again. Here's our product roadmap, or here are our solutions. Here's what we're doing to invest in ourselves. And we want you to take a chance on us because we believe that we've done the right things to serve you. And I think when you come from that standpoint of empathy and not tricking people with funny things or just memes or vapidness, and there's nothing wrong with those things in moderation, but you've got to be able to come back and say, if I'm creating this piece of content and I'm going to spend some time doing it, I better understand my subject matter, and I better have some really well-written humans who can put this content together so it can actually be revered on LinkedIn and people want to consume it, and you do that consistently over a period of time, and they want to hear more from you because everywhere they go, they keep seeing your content and they really enjoy it. And I bet you have 1,000 stories, Grant, of DMs on LinkedIn where people may not want to comment because some people aren't commenters, but they may DM you and go, Grant, that was a really good piece. I really like how you put that together. You better believe that if they had a need for your software, they'd think of you first. And it kind of reminds me of when I used to sell, you remember the classifieds, Grant? I know you're around my age, so we remember the classifieds. You'd go and get a job. There'd be like 6 to 7 lines in the classified section. I used to sell those in a recession to people on the beach. And I knew that I wasn't successful by calling to get a job posting in that moment. I just wanted to let them know, whenever you do have a job, I want you to reach out to me. And I'd check on them from time to time. But they felt like they weren't getting sold. They were just getting checked up on. And when you have a need, I'm going to be there. And I tell a lot of people that good marketing today can help you get the heck out of the way of the sales process and let the prospect sell themselves. And that's where you really got good marketing alignment. But if people are coming away and saying, this is all shiny BS, it is going to damage your brand. And today, when you think about marketing, the brand is the most important thing because it encompasses everything you're trying to do, no matter what channel you're marketing in.
So I have, I guess, a little bit of a a different thought on why there's so much bullshit around. And this is not to, I think that a lot of what you said is true. Around that basically you have marketers and the marketers have to market, and there are certain tactics that have proven to be successful. And as long as you put a tweet out or you post on LinkedIn, it doesn't, to an effect, bad marketing is just, doing that stuff without a real underlying message. And that's true. And there's certainly a lot of that around, but I think that there's actually sort of like a more endemic problem that we have in the supply chain world that it either goes unnoticed or unchallenged, or there's a certain amount of glee that goes on in these bubbles where, let's take, there are three examples that I could think of that sort of talk to this point that I want to get your thoughts on. So let's imagine, let's take Project 44 as an example, right? I would say they were very good at marketing as a discipline. I mean, and they ended up growing, and I'm not going to talk about their technology a whole lot. I'm willing to give them credit for the technology that they developed, and that it would, to an extent, do what they at the lowest level said it would do. So, centralizing status message updates as an example, right? But then they had a promise that they appended to it, and it went something like, as a importer, if you know where your shipments are, it will solve all your problems. And that just happened to be plain wrong, right?
Right.
It didn't solve their problem. It was sort of, it fell into this category of necessary but insufficient. And as a result, they were promising something. They didn't truly understand what was going on. There was this one problem they understood very, very well, which was centralization of status messages. And they convinced a whole industry that this was the problem that needed to be solved. And people that should have known better jumped on that bandwagon and said, they're exactly right, to the tune of $1 billion of capital raised, right? Okay, and then you can take a different, example of Flexport. And I can't remember, has Flexport also raised $1 billion? I think they might have.
Something like that. Yeah, they raised
somewhere in that ballpark, right? And they were, their promise was to be, the next generation forwarder. It was forwarding on this crazy platform that was amazing. And again, I'm not denigrating their platform. It is amazing. Just structurally, it doesn't work. And, if you understand the forwarding market, and that most importers use 3 to 5 freight forwarders, then it doesn't matter how great Flexport's operating system is. The other forwarders aren't going to use their platform, and so they have a partial solution for every single importer, because while it might be great that Flexport has their set of things, there are reasons why Flexport can't be the one forwarder for the whole world. And so their solution fails. And so they promised something that they couldn't deliver on. And lo and behold, it seems as though that's the case, and people should have known better. Right. And then, the last example that I would throw out there, not, this is less about a company and more about a technology, is you have, things like blockchain, where it was a technology, and everybody said this was going to be the greatest, most revolutionary thing. And you had a bunch of people that most people should have been able to look at and say, you don't know anything about what you're talking, like all of the things that you are saying, there is a fatal flaw with all of it. And lo and behold, it's a bubble. Lots of people spend lots of money and lost lots of capital. The IBM, Maersk, partnership, ends up just spending, I don't know how many millions or billions of dollars on it, and then goes bust. And, everybody had marketing around all of this stuff, saying how great this stuff would be. And somehow an educated person should have been able to look at that, or a knowledgeable person should have been able to look at that and say, this is, all total bullshit.
Right.
And I don't understand why more people couldn't see that.
Well, I think we want to be, we want to hear from the kid running for school president that he's going to give pizza to everybody every lunch. And although that's a very cool thing to say, it doesn't mean it's going to happen. And I think these companies would do well, at the ones that you mentioned, if they just think about Domino's. I don't know if this was a campaign in Canada, but in America, Domino's really leaned into, about 10 years ago, hey, we get that some of our pizza was crap, and we understand that, but we're going to deliver a new experience. And they really leaned into what they were and where they're going. And it'd be interesting to see a Flexport or a Project 44 say, look, we feel like we made a really big splash with visibility technology. We helped pioneer that space, but we've heard the market and we understand what we are. And where we're looking to improve is here, here, and here. We understand that the blue dot is not the end-all be-all. It's a tactic in the overall hundreds of tactics that you as a BCO have to undertake in order to get your shipments from place A to place B. And there's a lot of other things that happen. What's the context of the shipment? Where is it holed up? Is it in customs? Is it here? Why is it there? What do I do next? And whether that's partnerships that P44 can make that are meaningful, I think good marketing is also about knowing your limitations and knowing when to partner with other people to augment your platform, such as I'm sure you guys have done with 3rd Wave. And you listen to the market and you respond in kind. And I understand there's a lot of VC money, there's a lot of expectation, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on companies to just market and do what they're supposed to do. But it's going to take real leadership and real gumption to be that vulnerable and say, we've heard you and we're going to make a change in our messaging, and we're never, ever going to blow smoke, and we're going to be real and pragmatic. And people love to forgive. People love to come back. And what Flexport and P44 have done is made a name for themselves. And they could really get to a really far place, I think, if they came out and were that vulnerable. I don't know if they ever will, but companies who have kind of gotten a bad reputation and they get knocked out there, and you and I see it left, right, and center on the internet, they should maybe listen to those things and change.
Let's switch tacks a little bit. I'm curious about if you have a couple examples of case studies that you've worked on that you think are really insightful or intuitive or interesting from, we did this work and it was really, an impactful piece of work on the business. And, what was the example and what made it so impactful?
Yeah, I think what made it so impactful, probably some of the best case studies are when we are able to combine sales and marketing. So we've had a number of customers where we've run LinkedIn ads and concurrently ran email sequences to the same list. And in those sequences, it wasn't just automated emails, but it was LinkedIn outreach, it was phone calls. And there has to be some expectations set on both sides to say, here's what marketing's going to provide, here's what sales going to provide, and here's what we expect out of it. And then you've got to be able to look at the analytics and guide you towards getting those results. So, in LinkedIn, if you're advertising, it will tell you which companies saw your ads. Which companies are on the list you uploaded and which contacts. So we can use that intelligence to feed back into something like a HubSpot or other email programs to have us reach out to those high priority folks. When you back that up with good search engine optimization, and anywhere they research you, they're finding really good content, because the moment you start reaching out is the moment they start vetting you and they go, well, who are these people? That is, if they're in a buying mode. And you need to know if they checked you out even further. And so programs like HubSpot can lead score these individuals. Those contacts, if they visit another page on your website, if they go to the websites like CNN, you can follow them around with Google display ads. So it's companies who have really invested not only in the push mechanism, which is that outreach and advertising sequence, but also in the pull method. They've done a lot of work in SEO. And OneRail is pretty successful in that route. They're on last mile delivery. We've been able to get them to rank number 9 in search engines for a very highly searched term of what they do in a land of high competition. And that's great. It's good to be vetted for last mile delivery and to show up high in search engines when they're out there searching. But where OneRail has really made inroads is they've allowed sales and marketing to intertwine. And we have a weekly call with sales, and we look at the dashboards and we say, where are things going and where can we improve? And then we use the technology in HubSpot to provide some insights and some automation that allow our salespeople to really get alerted when it's time for us to reach out to that prospect.
Okay, so I love the example, and I want to just dissect it a little bit so that people can understand at a slightly more granular level. So I'm going to play it back to you, and you tell me if I mostly have it right. So if we're talking about LinkedIn, what you're able to do, and LinkedIn ads, so these are paid ads that allow you to feed something to the LinkedIn users. What you're able to do on LinkedIn is select an audience that fits approximately who you think you want to target, right? So if you were, if 3rd Wave wanted to target automotive companies as an example, and specific people within the automotive, Ford is a massive company, but I want to get to a very particular person within Ford who does this, that, or whatever. I'm able to say, okay, well, it's this job title at Ford, or more generally automotive companies that I care about. And you can sort of build that audience by using a few attributes to figure out if it's 300 or 3,000 or 30,000 people that you want to get to in the LinkedIn environment. So by really focusing on the persona of that person that you want, you're able to access those kinds of people within LinkedIn. And that's really the one of the amazing things about LinkedIn, and a distinction to a large extent from Google, let's say, that doesn't give you that granularity for their job title, the company that they work at, things that are very important from a business perspective, especially a B2B. Like, one of the things that we should just acknowledge, we're talking B2B almost always, right? And so in this B2B world, you really care about audience creation and curation, right? And so now that you have the audience, you're able to feed them a piece of content that hopefully is created in such a way so as to be engaging for that audience that you've created, or at least a subset of that audience. You're looking for people that have a certain problem or a certain orientation or things of that nature. And so you're going to provide that to them with the ability for them to convert on something. That could be going to your website. It could be completing a form on LinkedIn, because you can do that as well. It could be going to a webinar or an event on LinkedIn or things of that nature. And then when they visit your assets, if it's a website, for instance, when they visit your website, you're going to put a pixel or a piece of a pixel on there.
That's right.
Or cookie. I mean, I guess it's really a cookie. You're going to put a cookie on their computer, on their browser now, so that when they go somewhere else, you now can track what they're doing, or Google is able to track those pieces. Is it largely Google and other ad networks?
Google and other ad networks you can follow them around. If they visited like a CNN or something, you can upload that same list to Google now. You don't get the intelligence that LinkedIn does on the companies who've seen it. But you're sending your brand in front of them with a relevant message, right? The crux of the internet is relevance, and they're taking action. We were able to use HubSpot and its intelligence that it provides for our clients. And an example was a logistics manager at a big retailer had downloaded a case study. We knew that they did that, so one of the sales reps just kind of followed up, said, hey, saw you downloaded this case study. Here's a few other pieces of collateral that you might need. HubSpot actually tells us that that guy forwards it to his boss, and between those two guys, they eventually reached out for a higher level meeting, and it ultimately became a customer. And the return on that paid for the LinkedIn ads for the entire year and the Google ads. So when you find the right people, it isn't always ready for them to buy. But in the case of, let's say you're trying to reach import managers at top tier 1 automotive, there are programs today where you can get those contact information. It doesn't mean that everybody on that list is ready to buy, but it's the right person who needs to see your brand. And so you're putting in front of them thoughtful messages, relevant messages, and you're trying to do everything you can to add value. And imagine doing that at scale with thousands and thousands of contacts, with sales people and BDRs consistently going through that churn. Over time, you're going to start to get some at-bats. You're going to start to hone your own skills, and you're going to learn in that process. And I've seen that work really well. Buying cycles can be up to 6 to 9 months. So it takes a lot of consistent outreach, smart outreach. And I would say there are tools today that you can do that better than ever.
So, one of the things that you just said, and I think is important to just, reiterate or highlight, is that, if you have 1,000 of these same types of people, they're going to be in a different part of their journey. All 1,000 people are going to be in a different part of their journey, right? So, and even if we were to subset that further, a certain subset are just never going to buy anything. Maybe they've already implemented some solution that you're selling or whatever, but that leaves half of the 1,000 people, let's say, that are in some kind of life cycle, from total Luddite, has no idea that anything exists and they have to learn and educate themselves and whatever, to, at the other end of the spectrum, this subset of people that are already reasonably far down the life cycle of an acquisition of some sort, and they are more able to buy your software or your technology or whatever it is that you're selling, your service, by virtue of, so maybe that's 2% of the 1,000 people that you're trying to target. They're trying to, you have the ability to sell those to, 2% of the people, it's to 2 people or 20 people or whatever it is, whatever the percentage is. And then you have this next wave of people that are still educating themselves. They're trying to orient their organization to acquire a new technology or a new service. And so by getting in front of them now, you're positioning yourself very well to get in front of that, be as part of that process. And then you have, before those people, you have people that are just sort of starting the process and educating themselves. And so the idea is that, like, you're in this sort of current life cycle or ongoing life cycle of people that are always pushing themselves through, and you're trying to get the people that are ripe for selling to them and making that match between, we're trying to sell to people and they're looking to buy something right at this point in time, while educating people that are coming up in that process or in that life cycle over the long haul.
That's right. And when you're raising money, one of the first things you put together in your pitch deck is you say, what is my possible TAM, my total addressable market? And I keep saying it, but HubSpot is one of those great technologies that you can upload lists of your total addressable market. You can start to dissect that, and you can start to say, well, my total addressable market in aerospace or automotive or this industry is this. And when you can concurrently run people's contact information and get them into the system, there's all the other technology that will send them other relevant content. And so you're really just trying to help them with value. Put together a sequence today for a 3PL, and we're talking about expedited freight services. I could send 4 straight emails that say, hire us for expedited freight services. We're fast, we're timely, etc. But it's hard to decommoditize expedited freight shipping. So what I really want to do is I want to say, are you doing expedited freight shipping at its best practices? So I'm going to give you some content that shows you 5 ways, or 6 ways to get your expedited freight shipping to be the best it can be. Or here's a thoughtful white paper that we've put together that will teach you how to deal with any market, whether it's a boom market with freight and capacity's tight, or maybe there's capacity aplenty, which there is right now. And you have to understand, okay, I need to be a strategic partner. So the white paper is geared towards strategy. All the while, you're still giving them helpful content, and you're calling, and your LinkedIn messaging, and you're emailing. And they're going to ignore 99% of that. And heck, they may even take that blog, read it, and not even tell you. Fortunately, the technology can tell us that they went to that page, but it's a long sales cycle, and you want to make sure that you're staying close to those prospects as much as possible, because people get busy. They may not be ready to buy, but when they are, the thought is they think of you.
All right. Well, I think that's probably a good place to leave it for now. Adam, tell us how people can find you.
You can check out our website at the-robinson-agency.com. You can look me up on LinkedIn, and anybody can send me an email at adam@the-robinson-agency.com. Sort of a mouthful.
Yeah. And it's important to note that there are more than one Adam Robinsons around, even in the marketing space. And you got to find the guy wearing the hat for San Antonio.
Guy looks like this. Yeah.
That's right. Well, hey, listen, I really enjoyed this conversation, Adam. I can't say enough good things about TRA and what it is that you guys do. And I appreciate our relationship, and look forward to the next time we have you back on the show.
Yeah. And thanks for having me.
It is certainly our pleasure. We appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. So anyhow, we'll talk to you soon. And in the show notes, we'll put your contact info as well for those people that are listening. Anyway, Thanks a lot, Adam. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. All right. Take care, Grant.
Thanks for listening to Third Wave Trade Talks. To get in touch and learn more about what we do, visit our website at thirdwave.co. There you'll find more resources to enrich your knowledge of global trade. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next time.